Greetings all, Dr. Raphael X here with another video with my friend Father Piotr Mazurkiewicz. I hope I didn't butcher the name badly. Thanks for coming on, Father. And yes, so let us begin
Hello.
with the sign of the cross, as we always do, remembering our baptism. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy
The Holy
Spirit.
Spirit.
Amen.
And
All right, well, please subscribe, click on the like button, notifications button, leave a comment, share this video, all that good stuff. So today we have a special treat. Father's written a book, I believe it was published this year, from En Route Publishers, and it is called, very interesting title, Two Towers and a Minaret. Migration from a Catholic perspective, a vital topic for today because this is kind of the root, we can say, political crisis we're living in Europe and in America, this unchecked migration, which we'll talk about. So Two Towers and a Minaret, Father will explain a little bit more of that, the title of the book. But today we're going to focus on the multiculturalism and cultural diversity, which Father very interestingly distinguishes in the book. So get the book. It's a really deep and profound book, I would say. It's 4 chapters, which means that themes are dealt with profoundly. They're dealt with in an in-depth manner. So get the book. It's not difficult to read. It's very a lot of different citations, very well referenced. So yeah, so going back to the theme here, multiculturalism. Father distinguishes it from cultural diversity, multiculturalism being an ideology. Cultural diversity is just kind of a social fact, we can say. So, Father, if you can introduce yourself a little bit. I know he's a professor here. I probably should have started with the introduction. I know he's a professor here, political science, actually in Germany, not here in the US. And
uh,
he does a lot of work with kind of in the political realm, let's say. Well, Father, if you could briefly introduce yourself, talk about the title of your book, why you chose that title, and maybe give us an
yeah,
introduction.
exactly, I am professor in political science, but in Poland at Cardinal Wyszyński University. The title is referring to a special competition between towers, which I saw on the one hand in Paris, on the other hand in Beirut. In Beirut, there was a competition which tower is higher, or the tower of the cathedral, the Maronite Cathedral, or the minaret. And that's the question, which sign is dominating over the sky? In Paris, the same competition we had between Tour Eiffel and the basilic, the tower of the cupola of the basilic Sacré-Cœur, because the Tour Eiffel was constructed for the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. So they wanted to build something which is higher than the cathedral.
Hmm.
And then a French priest decided that on the hill he will construct a basilic of Sacred Heart, which will dominate over this tower of the French Revolution. And that's just about the symbols. So that I would like to say that in the Western world, we are witnesses of this kind of competition, which has a very real significance, but also this symbolic dimension is important. In Europe, that's, we can say, a competition between the Christian world, the Christianity, the Christian culture, civilization, and on the other hand, with this French Enlightenment. That's the first competition. But the migration is changing this in the sense that, especially after 2015, the huge majority of migrants coming to Europe are Muslims. And this is changing the religious structure of the continent. So especially when the societies, European societies, are becoming more and more secularized, so we can say Christianity is less visible in the public space. So this public space in some countries is taken by Muslim symbols, but also by the fact that, for example, from time to time, Muslims are praying on the streets in big cities. And I think that this is challenging Europe, especially concerning the understanding of human being, because for example, when John Paul II was writing about communism, he said Marxism is built on anthropological error. So the vision of the human being is mistaken. But we can say that there are other visions, not only Marxists, which are mistaken. For example, liberalism with this extreme individualism. That's also a mistaken vision of human beings because we are naturally social beings. But also in Islam, the understanding of who we are is different than in Christianity. I think for this reason is worth to reflect on this. When we approach this idea of multiculturalism, I think in general, in English language, there is no distinction between the fact and the ideology. So you are using the same word. And when I ask someone to translate one of my articles on this subject, so finally the interpreter for both phenomenon used the same word, and the article had no sense. So I took a distinction which is in one of the Vatican papers, documents on this phenomenon. And in Italian, that's quite simple distinction between multiculturalismo and multiculturalità. What I tried to express using terms like multiculturalism and cultural diversity. And in general, we can say that when we have this and-ism, this is saying that we are talking about an ideology. That's a common understanding. It's not always, because when we are saying optimism, that's not ideology. But ideology, which means that we have a certain simplified vision of the world, of the society, and we are trying to realize this vision. So we are using different instruments, also political instruments, sometimes even violence, just to push this concept of the society. But on the other hand, when we are talking about our history, so we can say in Europe we have these historical nations, which we can imagine that there existed a day some homogeneous societies, which is not a fact. So that we never had 100% of homogeneity also in Europe, but we can say that our understanding was that they are historical communities, and they have elaborated a specific culture. This culture is common for many people, and they identify themselves with this culture. And they are different minorities. In the case of my country, which for some centuries was a commonwealth, because Poles had an idea to organize a union, but specific in the sense that this was a union between three nations. So Poles, Ukrainians, and Lithuanians, they form one state with three different languages. So the common language was Latin and Polish. But we had also about 10% of Jewish population with their own parliament. We had a German minority and some other minorities, like for example Armenians, and also since 6th centuries a Muslim community, which is today very well integrated into the society. But in this vision of cultural diversity, we can say, yes, there is a leading culture. So we can live together peacefully because we have common values, because we are able to communicate in a language which is in common, because we have a common political culture and institutions and so on. But at the same time, everyone can, in a public space, remain as a member of his own specific community. That's what we can see, for example, in dresses that there were Catholics and Protestants and Orthodox and Greek Catholics and Armenians and so on, and Jews, and it was visible in the public life, and people were not surprised by this fact. So I understand this cultural diversity as a fact that living in the same society, we are not exactly the same as people, as communities, but that we are able to live together with this prevailing culture.
If I could just come in here with the, because regarding that, and you alluded to it, you have three kind of approaches. You talk about three approaches to cultural pluralism or cultural diversity. Um, there does seem within the first kind of approach, I think you say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you say generally that there does need to be some type of meta cultural criterion. I'm not saying I'm not sure if you're just stating that metaphysical or meta cultural criterion should exist, or it's just absent. I'm not sure. You can correct me on that, but basically you're saying if without that criterion, we can't really assess which what culture is better in a sense, seeing it in its integral in its integrity, we can say. Um, so basically, we have a relativistic approach to cultural diversity. I think that's the first approach you have. But then there's other approaches like the grace replacement theory. I think you allude to that in the second approach. Can you kind of elaborate on that threefold approach to cultural diversity, and where do you think the truth lies in, like, which is the best approach?
You see, yeah, when we are looking at the history of the word culture, which was promoted by Cicero, so he understood that culture is the cultivation of human soul, of the anima. In this sense, we can say a human being has his own nature, and we in this public space, in the literature and so on, we have some patterns which are helping us to develop as human beings. So we can say to be more humans. And they are elements which can provoke degradation of our humanity in every society. And in this sense, we used the word culture in a singular. Then that's the end of 18th, 19th, the beginning of 19th century. There was a custom to use the word culture in plural, in the sense that every tribe has its own patterns, how they behave, how they pray, and so on, the models of the family, and so on. So the sociologists, ethnographists, they describe these local patterns, saying every of them is a culture and has its own value. And that's true, but the problem started when they tried to say that using the word culture in singular is never justified, because this is saying that our European culture is higher, had bigger values than the others. So if the other people of other societies would like to become more human, they should be more Europeans. And this was a saying in the time of colonialism, so that we can say really Europeans used the word culture in singular, thinking only about their own culture. But it doesn't, the misuse of the singular doesn't mean that there is no proper use of the word culture in singular. Because if we will say every culture has exactly the same value, what does it mean? That we cannot value different patterns and different ways of life and different ideas. We can say this means that, for example, the difference between vegetarianism and cannibalism, that's a question of taste and nothing else. So some people prefer to eat vegetables, and the others prefer to eat human meat. And there's no point of reference which would allow us to value those two elements. And we can say this has no sense. So we have to turn back to this Ciceronian understanding, which is also the main, the prevailing understanding of the word culture in the Catholic theology. So that we are reflecting if this proposal really can help to be more human or not. Really will help to reach our final goal. It means to be saved or not. When when people are saying that every culture has the same value, they're saying at the same time that there is no need to correct anything in this or that culture. John Paul II was saying that in every culture there is a so-called mystery of piety. So th those elements which are really very good also from the ethical point of view. And there's a mystery of iniquitas, so a mystery of evil, and that we have to discern those two elements. And the first we should try to develop, the others we should try to eliminate from our culture. I think that it's easy to understand when we are thinking about our historical memory. So that if a nation should exist, we should have this vision that we have common roots, that we are proud of our culture, of our history, and so on. But in the history of every nation, there are those elements which of which we can really be proud, but they are also shameful elements, like, for example, slavery in the US. So to be an American, you should not be ashamed of the American history and American culture, and you cannot be proud of everything. And to discern those elements, saying, yes, it's worth to be American. There are wonderful cards in our history, and we can be proud of this. But there were also some errors in the history we committed as a nation. We should understand this and try never to repeat those mistakes in the future. So we can make a distance from some elements of our history, and the same with the culture.
Right. And it seems like you make that essential relationship with culture and religion. And it also, I mean, it seems the fact in history it testifies to this, and what we're living actually also is really Christianity imbues the best culture. I mean, and you know, I mean, you mentioned the example of slavery, but I mean, against kind of like the mainstream narrative, it was really the British who ended slavery and promoted the ending of slavery in Africa. So it's yeah, there was slavery also, but also you kind of see the pushback based on Christianity um, against these evils, and even the fact that really the flocking of other cultures, people from other cultures, are just going into Christian nations, which is interesting. Because multiculturalism, isn't it? It's kind of like a Christian charity run amok, we can say, or the extreme, the absolute, in a disordered way, we can, in a sense, of charity. And multiculturalism can only be, yes, it comes from Enlightenment also, but even the Enlightenment has its Christian roots. So it seems like deep down that really, and even by UN standards, just by UN standards, like the cultures that are not Christian seem to be again, by UN standards, doing worse regarding human rights, the availability of education, healthcare. I mean, you could look at the Middle East, you could look at China, India. So this is really interesting. There's a relationship that you make also with religion and culture. I don't know if you want to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yes, because it's not by chance that when we are saying culture, so we say cult,
Right.
a religious cult. We can say that this deep human experience was always linked with the cult, with gods. Also in the sense that we have this need for eternal life in ourselves. So that's one understanding of this relationship. The other fact you stressed is the fact that religion is or religious population is creating a concrete culture. So we can say in Europe, in general on the West, we have this ancient culture, pagan culture of Greece and Rome. But with those ideas, for example, that women they were senseless, so they had no real value, and they were treated more or less like children. And that's the biggest philosopher Aristotle is saying that slaves and women they are not reasonable, so they have to follow the only reasonable being, a man. Or we have this slavery, but slavery based on the presupposition that they are slaves by nature. So they are really no human beings. And it is not by mistake that they are a slave. That's from just a natural thing. We have, for example, the distinction of superfluous girls. So that in Roman families, in genealogies, we see that there were many boys and only one or two girls, because the father was killing those additional girls. They had no special value. And this was totally changed by Christianity, and especially by this very simple expression that humans are created on the God's image and likeness. But not only that we are created on God's image and likeness, but every human being. So there is no difference in dignity between man and woman, between slave and free person, between Greeks and the Jews, because our human nature is in common, is exactly the same in every human being. And this was something which I am calling anthropological revolution in Europe. So we can say when this pagan Roman and Greek culture mingled with Christianity, the European culture was born only in this moment. And Christianity was like a filter, so that these elements which we can call mysterium iniquitatis, at least some of them we lost in the past. When we are looking today, for example, on the whole concept of human rights, saying this is not just a Western concept, but this is universal. So wherever we meet a person, so this person deserves respect for these rights. That's strictly Christian understanding. But on the other hand, when we are thinking about European culture, we cannot say that in any moment of the history this Christian ideal was totally realized in practice, so that there were no sinners in Europe. And also, when Europeans were going to other continents, they were bringing Christianity, but also they were coming as sinners. So we cannot just justify everything. Which, for example, that's Cardinal Ratzinger is saying concerning the discovering of America, that when Spaniards fight it with Aztecs, so that they fight it the same way as in Europe, that there were the rules in the fight. And when they have seen the next day the city they conquered, and about 20,000 people killed for a sacrifice a day before the battle. So they said, no, that's not human. So we see that there was an encounter of two different cultural concepts and two different concepts of human being and how we should treat human beings. So in this sense, we can say, yes, Christianity brought something good, a good change also to America, but it doesn't mean that Christians brought only good. So that we have to discern between the gospel, the Christianity, and concrete Christians, where some of them were saints and some not.
Yeah, that's what's beautiful about the religious ideal, that we don't always live by it, but we aim for it. So obviously, not everyone lives according to that ideal, but it was interesting today. People want to change that ideal according to the way people live, which no. We still have to live that ideal. Obviously, in the practical and concrete life, it's not always lived, but that ideal is still there. And yeah, very, very good. I want to get into
We can
yeah, I'm sorry, Father.
we can say that the gospel is always in front of us.
Right. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. I want to get this question of posts, because I think it's very interesting, because you talk about posts. We live in a post identity kind of the mentality, which is very globalist. Um, I don't know if this stems from a disordered view of Christian charity. Maybe you can say maybe you can tell us the origin of this. Why is there so much antagonism towards nationalism, towards identity? Why do they want to have, like, what you call the mentality of, or maybe it's in your introduction, you say open borderism, which is another ideology,
Uh,
I guess, associated intimately with multiculturalism. But is this a kind of Christian universalism, which you also allude to? Is there, relationship between this post-identity mentality we're living in and this Christian universalism? Is it a good thing, this not having an identity, kind of like one world, as the
uh,
saying goes?
uh, you see, I think that on the West, there were born also a lot of Christian heresies. It means that uh, uh, many different ideologies, concepts would not appear if there would be no Christian ground. And heresy means that you exaggerate with this or that element in this Christian understanding of human beings and of the world. So, for example, we are saying uh, a person means an individual, to be a single, to live per se. And liberals are saying the same. But they end here. And we are saying, no, but a person is an individual created to live in natural relations with the others. So is also a social being. The Marxists, they stress this social dimension, saying, yes, community, but a single person has no value. Both ideologies appeared due to this Christian ground. And also, when we are thinking about this new understanding of, I think, of universalism, but we can say this globalism. That's something different between, because when we say that something is global, means everywhere. And when we say universal, means for everyone. So that we are saying, yes, humans have the same nature wherever they live. But it doesn't mean that they should have a global, unique society or a global government. Because also in this human nature, we are stressing that there are two natural communities, the family. So we are created to live in a family, and we are doing this, in fact. And then a nation, which means a bigger community, but which is human in the size also, so that we can really identify with this community and this culture. And also when we are talking about identity, this post-identity era started with liberalism, in the sense that in liberal thinking, we are really individuals. Hobbes is saying that we grow like mushrooms in the forest. So without any relationship with other mushrooms, without even parents. And then every single person is entering into relationships due to his own decision, and creating some contracts. So relations between people are contractual. And this means also that finally the society is a result of an outcome of a contract, of a free will contract. So then the question is why we cannot organize such a global contract. Because the reason for being for a community, for living together, is just free decision of a single person. In a conservative way, we would say that we were born in a community. So we have parents and the duties also to parents. We have brothers, natural brothers and sisters. We learned a language of a very concrete community. And we learn to speak and to think in this language and not the other, and also to pray. As we are living this way, and the world is in general human, organized this way, so we should not risk to make a revolution because we don't know what will be the outcome of this revolution. So we are trying to live in these communities, which we are calling nations, historical nations, and at the same time, we are trying to establish peaceful relationships between those communities in the world. The globalist approach is saying, no, today we are just one global society. All the differences between people, countries, nations have no value. And to resolve our problems, we need one global government. And I would say that that's against the common sense, because it's enough to go to China or to Russia or somewhere to Africa and to say, yes, there are people like me, but that's not my culture. So the world is organized different way to this or that extent. So if also in the context of migrants and of integration of migrants, we can say that there is what we are calling cultural distance. If this distance is not very large, people integrate easier in the society. But this is not just a geographical distance. It means that, for example, we have a lot in common with Ukrainians. That's Christianity, Slavic language, partially common history, and so on. And on the streets, I don't discern between Poles and Ukrainians. So they are just forming a part of our society. But also, when they are coming people from Africa and they are Christians, they easily integrate into Christian communities in Poland. So there is a difference of the color of the skin, but Christianity is a deep common platform for us. And I see that they are praying a little different. The dance, the melody of songs is a little different, but it's mine in the sense of expressing the same faith. But the distance between the Chinese culture and the European culture, that's a huge distance. Right. And if someone is saying, no, it doesn't matter, so it's not realistic. On the other hand, when we are talking about international community, there is the presupposition that the nation states are not playing any important role in international politics. But in reality, it's opposite, because the US is a nation state, China is a nation state, Russia is a nation state, France is a nation state, Germany is a nation state, Great Britain is a nation state, India is a nation state, Brazil. So we can say, yeah, that they are also international communities, this or that kind, which are playing a role. But the most important partners in international relations are member states, are the nation states. So that I think it's important to be realistic. And when we would like to say, but why people don't see this, don't perceive those differences, my answer is because of ideology. So they believe that heterogeneous society has a bigger value than homogeneous society. Why? No one knows. Uh,
I think
that's
that,
that's a presupposition. Yeah,
yeah,
that's so. What does it mean that uh, if to the US will come 10 million Chinese, this will be enrichment of the US. Uh, mm, and if all the Latin America will come to the US, so it's better because there will be bigger diversity in the society. Uh, but we used to live in societies which are more or less homogeneous, not
right,
totally, but that they have something in common. That this is also provoking that the life is possible because there is this solidarity between people and relations like in the family. There's this kind of relationship, not that we should uh, take care for the common good of our country because we have common institutions, but because we are like family, which has also deep meaning in the sense that when you will be in troubles, we will not leave you. We will help you because you are from the family.
right, right.
Uh, and especially when we are talking about the wars. So looking on Ukraine, if there would be no this a common understanding, if there would be no nation, Ukrainian nation, people would not sacrifice their life to protect their families. Also in the context of security, the sense of community is very important. Um, and in the context of migration, we can say, yes, if we are receiving migrants, because everyone has the right to leave his country if he wishes, and if we are going to let him enter our country, so we expect that this person will respect our culture, our society, and will have a wish to integrate into this society, not to be assimilated. It means to get rid with his own culture and tradition and pretend that he was born here, but he will be able to become a full member of the society of this community. And in the American history, an element of integration was the military service. If someone is willing to risk life for the country, it means he's on our side.
Yeah,
Um, if today there is, for example, a proposal of a global society, global citizenship, so that a person can decide freely when will live, and we can say not asking for permission and at the same time, without this need to be integrated and without duties to the people around. So this will have no sense.
Yeah. If I could just, what you talk about with sophism, and we could kind of wrap it up here because this is, I mean, I would like to do other videos with you on this because there's a lot of things here. The stability you're talking about, which is so key, it's so obvious that we need national stability that you talk about. The belief in people from somewhere has changed to people from anywhere. Like there's just this constant flux of movement, and then if there's not this stability where people are not staying places, you don't have loyalty. And obviously, countries should not want this because. I mean, why would you just want this influx of migrants? Obviously, there are certain cases where people come here and then they go back, but then this whole influx is going to destroy the nation, and that seems to be the whole agenda of multiculturalism, globalism, universalism, what have you. And it seems to me that there's not any, as again, it's absurd. We don't know why they're doing this, but it seems like the cause is supernatural. That it's really in preparation for the reign of the Antichrist. That's my view. Really, the Antichrist coming when everything's globally kind of dominated is much easier to reign, as our Lord Jesus Christ said, right? This is the prince of this world is Satan. So little by little, maybe we're seeing that hellish descent of the world through politics. Because as you mentioned, this is a tool. This is a tool for a political tool, um, for globalization. But again, without knowing the natural underlying reasons, almost like there cannot be any. It seems to
Uh,
me. But yeah, go ahead. Kind of to wrap this up, I just want to say this last thing that I love the distinction you make that forget about the left and the right, even in world politics, it's not about left and the right, that deeper in the political sense is about internationalists or globalists and nativists. Those who are like more of the local community, those who are localists, we can say. But I thought that was a really good distinction here. And this last part of the chapter one, which is I thought it was excellent, my favorite part. But go ahead if you wanted to kind of wrap this up, Father, and again to be continued to the next video in some
uh,
weeks, God willing.
you see, you referred to the distinction which was proposed by Krasiev, and he refers to the different understanding of politics. So that when you have this liberal understanding of the society based on common interests, you can have also a government of people who are responsible for the country, but their private interest is distinct from the interest of the country. That's the question of today's meritocrats. So if you are a head of a bank in France, and your bank, which is a part of international corporation, collapsed in France, you are moving to Brazil and you are head of the bank in Brazil. So for you personally, it doesn't matter what's going with the clients of this bank in France, because you are at the same position. If you are a prime minister of a country and you provoke a disaster, you are becoming a commissioner in the European Commission. So that's more or less the same position, the same rank of, and you don't feel any responsibility for what you did to your compatriots. That's one understanding. of politics. And the other is that we are creating a family. So we are from here, and we will never escape from here because this is our country. So if there will come a crisis, you can rely on us. We will not leave you because it's impossible to leave the family. And that's this distinction of people from anywhere, so that they are just for a certain time here, but they are not rooted here, and they don't feel members of this community. So if there is a problem, they are moving elsewhere. And those people who are rooted in the community, and that's a natural for humans. I think Krastev is putting a very delicate question because he's Bulgarian by origin. And in the context of integration, he's saying, yes, the process will go on, but who will read in 100 years Bulgarian poetry? So the Bulgarian language will disappear, and I care for this. Maybe they will be living there, wealthy people on this territory, but they will not continue my culture. They will not prolong my community. And I care for this because this is my community. And we are beings which need those local community, that we need to say we. So the other vision of humans is very abstract.
Yeah.
So there are no people like in this ideology. And that's why Marxists had to use violence to establish their own proposed regime.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to be realistic, but from the Christian point of view, it's very important to understand who we are as beings created by God.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. And yeah, that's really I like how you brought in the whole Marxism. It's like global Marxism, basically, what's going on. I mean, the minorities are really imposing their view, their whole position, their culture on the majority, which are the natives, which is really mind-boggling. But yeah, no, this has been a really interesting conversation here. We only talked about and we kind of scratched the surface, but we did get a little bit into it, but only chapter one. So so hopefully in very near future, we're going to do a video on chapter two, which is Europe's identity in the context of migration. So yeah, get this book. Excellent book. Here it is. And I love the cover too. Excellent book from Ed Rout from Father here, Piotr Mazurkiewicz. Sorry again if I butcher the name, but Migration from a Catholic Perspective. Get the book, read it until the next video. And Father, I give you the last word if you want to say something, exhortation, or whatever.
You see, I'm very glad that I can share my views with you, with those who will watch the video, and that this might inspire them to reflect on humanity, on society, and on the nature of differences among people. So God bless you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Father. God bless. Until next time, take care, everyone.